Hi everyone, I'm Kate from General Assembly and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Things in Retail, presented by Advertising Week APAC, Lucio.ai and GA. A big thank you to our collaborators and partners of Advertising Week APAC and Lucio.ai. Thanks also to our panel this evening, Hannah from Lvly, Jonathan from the Warehouse Group, Jess from TWOOBS and our moderator Lucio Ribeiro. Firstly, to introduce General Assembly. We're a global tech education company helping people upskill in education, technology, business, and design. And our mission is to empower people to pursue the work they love. You can visit us online at ga.co and check out all our offerings from classes and workshops to longer format courses and free events like this, currently all running live and online. Before we begin, I'm going to run through some housekeeping information for you. For this webinar, attendees will have no video and you are muted, so don't worry if you can't see yourself. To participate in the webinar today, I'd like to point you to the menu bar down the bottom of your Zoom screen. You will see 2 functions, the chat box and the Q&A. If you have any content-related questions for the presenters, please only ask those in the Q&A box, and we will get to them we'll get to as many of those at the end of the session. If you have any troubleshooting issues, GA-related inquiries, or any general comments you'd like to make on today's event, please pop these in the chat box and our team will follow up with you if necessary. A recording of the session will also be emailed to you in the next week. Lastly, it would be wonderful if everyone could take a couple of minutes after the event to fill out the feedback form, which the link will be in the chat box at the end. And without further ado, I'll now pass on to Lucio to kick off. Thank you everyone and enjoy the event.
Hello, welcome to the Advertising Week Briefings 5 Things, or series of monthly education events where I interview industry experts on 5 things and 5 things only worth knowing about a specific industry. So last month we had a glorious reunion where we talked about chocolate, we talked about milk, food and purpose, we explored FMCG. But tonight we'll talk about the world of retail. But before starting the night, I would like to thank all the people that make this event possible. I'd like to thank Natalia, Emily, James, and Harry, who are volunteers that helped me to get this event together. I'd like to say thank you to Ingrid and Kate and the team at General Assembly. And of course, my friend Clive from Advertising Week APAC, and Gaudi, who is the social media manager at Advertising Week APAC, and she's covering today's session. I'm your host, I'm Lucio Ribeiro, and I'm a marketing consultant and founder of Lucio.ai, a business that helps senior marketers with their digital needs. I'm also a lecturer of artificial intelligence at RMIT, digital marketing at RMIT, and marketing sites and data at Deakin. In today's panel, as I say, we talk about retail. The hashtag for today is hashtag 5 as the number, hashtag 5 things. So welcome Hannah, welcome Jonathan, and welcome Jess. Pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you for making it tonight. Hopefully Jonathan's here. And before we kick off, we're gonna run a very quick poll. And Kate, if you don't mind, just to launch the poll, we just wanted to see, just want to have an idea what our audience is, so we can kind of move our conversations one way or another. Just a quick click there if you are an agency, or if you're a digital agency, a marketer working a brand, or in the service market, a startup, freelancer, a student, or if you're being hit heavy by coronavirus and you're now looking for something or looking to start something. We have here representing all sort of businesses. We have Jess with this beautiful startup, really hustling, getting stuff done. And I have lots of lessons around there. Hannah with Lvly, huge growth. We're going to talk about that growth. And Jonathan, of course, from the Warehouse, one of the largest, if not the largest retailer in New Zealand. So hopefully you can just give a little bit of a vote there. And we're going to close this right now, if you will, please, Kate. I think it's enough. And once you have the results, so we have, wow, we have a balance of a lot of backgrounds, but taking a little bit more, 40% of today are marketers. God bless you. We have We have a good balance across ad media production agency, digital agencies, startups, freelancers, students, and people looking for something. So welcome all of you. And before we kick things off, I would like to give a little bit of background and understand what you've been up to. So how about we start with you, Jess? How about telling you about who you are and what you've been up to?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me tonight. So my name's Jess. Usually I have someone sitting next to me who looks exactly like me, who's my sister, Steph. And we started this business together. We've been working in fashion together since 2012. We launched a fashion blog. I was 19, still at uni, going to RMIT actually. And that just took us on a crazy ride. We ended up launching our own footwear business, TWOOBS, and that's where we spend most of our time now. We also have a podcast, but it's this really fantastic, dynamic business that's all about supporting women. It's animal friendly, and I'm sure that we'll get into all of the details later tonight.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you for being here. Jonathan, how about a little bit of you? What have you been up to? Your background?
Yeah, sure. So I am currently the Chief Customer Officer of the largest retail group in New Zealand. But up until this point, I've always been lucky enough to spend my time working in global businesses that I believe make the world a better place. It's one of the reasons I ended up joining this company, because the minute I found out that they wanted to make Kiwi lives better through everything they did, I couldn't help but join. And prior to that, I was at a small company called Disney, working with innovation and building billion-dollar businesses like Hannah Montana, High School Musical, Disney Junior, you name it. Moving into a video game company that was all about connecting the world through play, through titles like Farmville and Words with Friends. And then moving into Yahoo, a big internet company that was all about reducing friction between information and people. And so just, again, companies that always, when you join them, you feel like the world is better with them in them. And to move into retail and have that same mission has been incredible. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment, where I get to work with marketing, e-commerce, and all things data and customer insights to build experiences for customers that people love.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks for joining us here. It's a treat. It's a pleasure to have you. I think we met first on the Advertising Week events. I think it was last year in Sydney, and I was absolutely surprised, and it was an amazing event, an amazing speaking that you gave about your journey on search and your journey about media. So hopefully we get to talk a little bit about this today, right?
Cool.
And finally, Hannah, how good to have you here. Finally got you in an event. So how about a little bit of background, who you are, what are you up to, Lvly, you, everything.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So my name's Hannah Spilva. I'm co-founder of Lvly. My background's actually in brand building and digital marketing. I spent the last 10 years prior to Lvly developing work on both sides of the world, over in the UK and here, for global retail brands, including Adidas, Uniqlo, Kmart, and David Jones over here. And that kind of took me up until 2014, when I founded Lvly with a good friend of mine. And Lvly is a direct-to-consumer flower and gift delivery business. We provide a same-day delivery across Melbourne, Sydney, and Adelaide, and a national next-day delivery service. As a business, we exist to make people's day. That's our driving purpose, to connect loved ones when they can't be together. We've been really fortunate that the business has grown rapidly over the last 5 years, but particularly over the last 8 weeks, we've experienced upwards of 400% growth, which has been quite a wild ride. So I'm excited to share some insights from that with you guys.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Thanks and welcome here. So how about the awards? How about the Telstra Business? Do you want me to say, or I would love you to explain to us what happened there.
Okay, yeah, I can cover that. So yeah, we've been fortunate in that we have, over the last sort of 12, 18 months particularly, been recognised with some, the honour of some pretty amazing awards. More recently, I received the Telstra, I was in the Telstra Women's Awards for Small Business Leader, which was a huge honour. And yeah, we've been really fortunate over the last 18 months to get quite a lot of recognition, both from an industry award perspective, but also just from a general kind of PR perspective. Thanks for mentioning that, Lucio.
No, I've seen you. Congratulations, that's amazing. So as you see, guys, we have an amazing panel here. Hannah, we have Jonathan, we have Jess, all amazing on their own way, managing large brands, and Jess managing her hustling business, and Hannah with a growing business. There's all kind of stuff, and we're here today to talk about retail. So retail is one of these many dying categories that will not die. You know, it's like as everything. Like we always have on the big event, you always have someone dying. It's like a funeral celebration. TV is dying, retail is dying, and everything is dying. So just take a look on the list of the Australian largest media spenders, right? 5 retailers as right there as the largest media spenders. And if you look again, you have a stunning realization, right? 8 of the top 10 brands sell directly to consumers, so we actually manage the channels. The only 2 that are on top of the 10 biggest spenders in Australia are Australian government and Vic government. They're not really retail, right? But in 2020, as most categories, retail has suffered. We have seen that. So, but the reality, customers stop for no one. Certainly not a virus, right? Survival demands adaptation. So, Hannah, you're saying that you had about 400% growth during the crisis. So, on your perspective, what are the biggest transformations that we've been seeing in retail, not just with coronavirus, but that probably coronavirus has speed up? What are the biggest transformations you've seen in retail?
Yeah, well, look, I think certainly in the last 8 weeks, particularly, we've seen some of the biggest transformations in retail, certainly in my lifetime. It's been a time really that's required rapid transformation on absolutely all fronts in business. There's been a hugely accelerated shift towards online shopping, which is clearly a problem for retailers who don't have an online presence. But you know, it's also a huge challenge for retailers that do have an online presence, because in some cases there's been such surges in demand that retailers simply can't scale to meet that demand. We're certainly one of the lucky ones that's thrived. Yes, we've experienced, you know, upwards of 400% increase in sales. We've had to more than double our team. We've more than doubled our physical space. But you know, there's so many challenges that retailers of every size have experienced across the board. There's been huge disruptions to supply chains, particularly international supply chains and even local supply chains. We are fortunate in the sense that we already had a huge focus and commitment to sourcing local products. So we were in a pretty good spot, but you know, there's lots of retailers who've had to completely rethink supply chains pretty much overnight. So I do think, and I hope that there will be a trend towards more local supply chains going forward, or certainly more of a trend towards a good blend of local and international supply chains going forward. There's been a huge shift in the duty of care for our employees and customers. You know, this is a new thing. We're having to protect our staff and customers in different ways that we've never experienced before. So lots of businesses having to split their operating groups into separate groups, a huge adoption of remote working. There's been more pressure than we've ever seen before on things like our logistics network. So because of the surge in online shopping, there's been countrywide delays in customers receiving deliveries, and at the same time you're trying to introduce new processes around contactless delivery. So, you know, there's really been changes and transformations on every front. But I think one of the things for us, and I think for everybody, that we can take and learn from this is that actually complex problems don't always require really complex and expensive solutions. One of the examples of that is we, over the last 8 weeks, rolled out same day delivery 7 days a week. So as a business, if you order by 1 p.m, we will deliver by 6 p.m, 7 days a week across Melbourne and Sydney. Now, our decision to roll that out was because customers were demanding it over this time, and they will continue to demand it. And that will be a business as usual service for us ongoing, you know, but rolling that out it creates complex problems that need solving operationally, logistically, with our supply chain. We could have spent months, even a year, trying to figure out how to execute this perfectly. And in reality, we rolled it out. It's sticky taped together behind the scenes. It's creating headaches for us every weekend internally, but from a customer perspective, the experience is good. We're delivering on what they need us to deliver. So I think it's a real lesson in, you know, you can move quickly, but sometimes you just need to get out of your own way, stop finding reasons why things won't work, and choose progress over perfection just to make things happen. So I hope that that's a bit of a shift in mindset for all businesses going forward.
So Jonathan, I wanted to bring on this point from Hannah. So Hannah has been describing different things besides supply chain, besides the delivery and distribution. In your case, has it actually really changed as much as speed up things that should have happened already? So what is your take on the biggest transformation in retail?
Yeah, so I think if you zoom out, right, from this moment that we're in, and you think about what this moment's going to look like on a 5-year curve, it's going to fit into the curve that's always been there. But certain parts of that curve have accelerated, and some of the digital transformations, some of the customer expectations have moved forward, where you have 5 years worth of growth in 6 weeks, right? And that's something that businesses that are built on top of really clunky supply chains, and especially retail, well, typically traditional businesses have somehow built themselves on top of really old either data or systems, have had to very quickly evolve into a world where real-time data is the expectation. And so as you think about customer experience and utility and what is the role of a retailer, the moment we found ourselves in together has been one that has caused customers to really demand more, and has opened their appetite to trying new things for a variety of different reasons. And so as retailers, I think what's happening is there's two things that are really exciting. The first is the customer experience is infinitely more interesting and demanding than it's ever been. And you're seeing that with digital. You're seeing that as people are demanding things like real-time inventory, real-time shipping. They want to know where their thing is at all times. And that's always been a part of kind of that retail transaction, right? I give you money, you give me a product, and that's kind of always been the deal. But the way that those two things happen has evolved really, really quickly. And as a retailer with a massive physical footprint that now has to make that work digitally, that's been a challenge. And figuring that out, it's been absolutely key. The second side of that is the utility of it all. And so I think about things like shipping or pickup. And so we have a brand within our portfolio called Lvly. It's a consumer electronics brand where 1 hour delivery, 1 hour pickup rather, has become absolutely the hero, because as long as we have that particular item in store and in stock, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to get it to you 59 minutes after you hit the buy button. And that's been an incredibly successful customer-driven activity that is now changing how we think about inventory from a retailer point of view. And that just fundamentally changes how we look at everything. And what it all adds up to is, as retailers are having to change and be more agile more than they ever have, and whether you're big or small, every retailer is trying to figure out how can you receive signals from customers faster and react to them faster in a way that doesn't require rebuilding the entire system from the ground up each and every time. And that's really where I'm seeing a lot of innovation happen. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of the bigger players start to get really interesting, because the players that figure out how to be more agile in this new world are the players that are going to win.
How about you, Jess? Any transformation that you've been feeling in your own business, in your own retail business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've been really excited by the fact that, you know, everything is so go, go, go. in everybody's life. And, you know, it just means that we're just making purchase after purchase after purchase. We're not thinking about things. We're not thinking things through. We're not leading with our values when there's no time to stop and think. And so for us, what's been a really exciting thing to come from this moment is that people have just had time to let the dust settle a little bit and start to think about how they want to move forward in a more productive, more happy way. So a lot of the feedback that we're getting from our customers is this shift towards shopping locally, towards supporting smaller businesses. And for us as a small business, you know, we have a footwear brand, and it is really difficult sometimes to stand out amongst the international retailers. I mean, I think we're seeing that now more than ever with the department stores in Australia and how they're struggling to meet the demand. It's a pretty cool time to see that people are actually taking a step back and considering the power that they have with their purchasing, because there is so much power in a purchase. You know, how people spend their money shows so much about who they are and what they care about. And so this time, I think we've really seen that people are leaning into that rather than just go, go, go. And for us, that's a really great thing.
So it's very interesting you're talking about the power to people. And I was listening to you, Hannah, and your background is marketing, working in retail brands like Adidas and Uniqlo and Kmart, and you have good experience. And now you're with Lvly, of course. And with your experience, we all talk about this transformation. Things are going to be transforming. So if you take a little bit of Jeff Bezos' plain book, with your experience, what are the things in retail that will not be transformed? What would be the same for some time now? You're on mute.
Myself. I think the things that aren't going to be transformed, which actually shouldn't be transformed in retail, are getting the fundamentals right. And a lot of those key fundamentals will always be the same thing. You know, there's this huge scramble to get online, but ultimately tech isn't going to solve all retail woes. Getting the basics right includes things like, you know, having a brilliant product, having a pricing strategy that leaves consumers feeling like you're offering brilliant value for money. Loving the shit out of your customers, making your customers happy at all cost, like the most fundamental thing in retail that still some retailers don't do well. But there is nothing more important than at all cost making your customers happy. Physical retail is not going to go away. It's always going to have a role to play. We're a digital business. We're a pure play digital business at the moment, but, you know, absolutely we're looking for opportunities and ways for us to test the physical space. We absolutely believe it has a relevant role to play. So physical's not going to go away. You know, and importantly, talking about, you know, getting the fundamentals right, it's about making sure that you're always relevant. And again, that comes down to listening to your customers, getting your product and pricing right. You know, that's not about just getting online. It's being really clear about what problems you're solving for consumers. And those problems might change over time, and the way that you're relevant might need to change over time. So it's really making sure you've got all of those fundamentals in place and not getting so distracted by being online or investing in tech that actually all of those basic things fall away.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a really good point, because we had really focused, and it's a little bit Mark Ritson's philosophy, really focusing promotion. Mark comes and think that solves everything. So I think that they're going back to some of the tradition. And I'd like to loop you in now, Jonathan, ask you actually a question, just coming from what Hannah is saying. So when you're creating marketing or you create advertising campaigns, what are the things that need to be considered that exists just in retail world, that it's peculiar to retail? What is the fundamental insight in creating marketing and also advertising for retail?
Yeah, I think it all starts with making sure you have a really good product, right? There's no point in creating demand that you can't catch. And that comes down to making sure that the product you have is available, making sure the product you have has a good experience, And if you attract 100 people, an appropriate version of those 100 people are going to convert into what you might create as a sale. So when you're looking at really good advertising and marketing communications to drive demand, we kind of break it down to 3 areas. So the first is it has to have utility. And I think that's all about making sure that the fundamentals of what it is that you are creating for customers are really, really clear. It has to solve a problem they actually have. And that would go to the second point, which is if the marcom that you're putting into the world doesn't solve a problem in the moment or doesn't create a solution to a problem that customer might have, then it just becomes wallpaper. And that's something that's really, really tough for, I think, marketers to move beyond, because a lot of marketers, we end up using language that's very insular because we talk to one another all day long. And at the end of the day, the customer is a very, they're a very receiving person who really just wants to get spoken to in a way that's very, very simple. And if we're not careful, we can overcomplicate something that is really something that just needs to be very, very simple. And the way I share that with the team is, some of the best advertising in the world really talks about human insights. So like, don't talk to me about millennial men and women who live in cities, who are urbanites. That's not a demographic. That's not a cut. That's not a target audience. That's actually not that interesting to create advertising around. Talk to me about people who would rather be dead than dull, right? People who want to be interesting. And that's a totally different type of insight than the insight you'll get if you just use a demographic cut. And so I think one of the biggest jobs of marketers is to figure out where are the insights coming from and how can you use those insights to drive utility. And that takes us to the third point, which is creating a connection. That is the most important thing in advertising. If you don't connect with the audience that you're hoping to speak to, or the audience that you might accidentally be speaking to, then you're not really going to be able to create the demand that you're hoping to create. Because the number one reason the marketer is in the room, and the number one reason we create marketing communications, is because we as a business make more money when marketers do their job well. Otherwise, we'll just play a complete commodity game, and all we'll do is just play with price all day long. But we put marketing in the room, because when marketing's in the room, we can create intrinsic value. We can sell something more than what somebody else could sell it for, because we imbue it with something that's more interesting, more important, more emotional. And that's really what you need the advertising or the marcom to deliver. Otherwise, you just end up in a product and price race to the bottom for a commodity. And that's not what we're here to do.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to remind the audience, we have a function of Q&A, and on the bottom of the screen, you just click there, send the questions. We're going to reserve some time at the end of today, at the end of today's webinar, to ask the questions to the speaker. So feel free to start sending your questions. We're going to be filtering this, and we're going to be answering those. So make sure you go to the Q&A function at this webinar, right? So I'm going to flip this conversation a little bit, and I'm going to go to you, Jess. You have created a business, all right, that takes a stand, and I can see you're very proud of your values around animal welfare, environment, female empowerment, inclusion. How is this working? I mean, it's a bunch of questions I want to ask around there, but I wanted to ask you, how is this working for you? How do you bring this live into retail? How actually you make this tangible and visible for your customers, and you can avoid going to the fight and the race to the earth, cheaper, faster? So how a value-driven business, how is that working? How you bring this live to retail?
Sure, yeah. So we are a for-profit business, but when we set out to create a business, we really wanted our values to be at the forefront. So as you touched on there, it's animal welfare, it's female empowerment, inclusivity. And essentially what that means is that we look to these as pillars every time we make a business decision. From the inside, that looks like our product being animal friendly. We've partnered with a female-led supply chain, and then to some really small things, like if we were to run an event, rather than going with some big florist who's been around for a very long time, we would partner with Lvly as a perfect example to support other females in business. So that's at its very, very basic level. But, Hannah and Jonathan both touched on connecting with customers. And I think that that's at the core of it, that we really don't see business and values and business and life. We don't see these things as separate anymore. I think that that's kind of an old school way of looking at it. From what we speak to and from what our customers tell us, they want to find a way to blend the two. So by leading with our values, we're essentially just allowing our customers to find us. So we care about animals. Our customers care about animals. That's awesome. That's something that we can bond over, that they can come to us rather than finding some other shoe that costs the exact same price, because at the end of the day, it is just a shoe. Our product's amazing, but you know, a shoe is a shoe is a shoe. How can we stand out? You know, you touched on things there like price and, you know, people wanting things right now. For a little guy, it's really hard to compete with those sorts of things, right? We don't have the same minimums that other people have. We're not able to, you know, have this really fancy logistics team, but what we can deliver on is heart. And so when our customers come to us, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a brand that has heart. And in our experience, it's a really great way to connect with customers. And it seems to be that the way the world is moving.
So continue on this on the whole conversation around retail and purpose. Like with coronavirus situations, we saw some of the retailers like Zara making scrubs for Spain's hospitals. We saw Louis Vuitton making hand sanitizers for French hospitals. So Hannah, I know that Lvly also has a very strong purpose, and the question is, do you think that every brand and retailer should have a purpose? And on the segue of that, have you seen any brand in Australia being a smaller retail or a small retail, large retail, pivoting for purpose and doing something during this coronavirus?
Yeah. I think absolutely brands in any industry should have a purpose. Every company should have a purpose that goes beyond selling stuff. Every business should be striving to solve problems for people, you know, on the planet at a macro level. And it makes total sense that we've seen big business pivot to help save lives and help save people's livelihoods. You know, it's heartwarming to see how many big brands have taken a moment to stop selling and start helping. But I think what we will see going forward is that, you know, it's not about pivoting. It's not about pivoting for purpose. It's actually having that purpose baked in to your business, baked into the DNA. I think that is going to be the trend going forward. Increasingly, we're seeing more businesses stand for a purpose right from the very outset. And I think it would be amazing going forward to see every business look to think about purpose, not just in crisis mode, but to help with ongoing issues on a global level, like solving poverty, global warming, gender inequality. There's so many purpose-driven things that businesses can be focusing on. But like Jess is talking about, for that to be meaningful and for that to be enduring, it actually has to be baked into the core DNA of who you are. It can't be a marketing tactic. It can't be an add-on. And a big part of starting Lvly was my business partner and myself asking us, well, what's our purpose? You know, and our purpose isn't actually to sell flowers and gifts. Our purpose is to make people's days, to connect loved ones when they can't be together. We sell flowers and gifts to help do that, and we provide it same day to make it convenient. But we've got a purpose that sits above that. And we've got a strong social and environmental conscience that we've built our 3 core business principles around, which is about being lovely to people, which talks to having outstanding customer service. It talks to the fact that for every posy or product we don't sell, we donate to aged care homes, hospices and hospitals. Being lovely to Australia, so looking to support, to source product locally, to support flower growers, and keep that money in the local economy, to be lovely to the planet. So to be really conscious of the environmental footprint we're creating with our company and treading lightly on the environment. But that has to be in the business from day one. So yes, I think increasingly it's important for every commercial entity to have that purpose. But I think what we're going to start seeing more of a trend towards is that being there from the absolute get-go and it not being a marketing tactic.
Sorry, rookie mistake. Jonathan, do you think, I should know better, that's my fourth run of advertising, I should know what to
Nobody
press the
saw.
button now. So Jonathan, continue on Hannah saying, what I see is, when we talk about purpose, when we talk about purpose not being a calm streak, do you think that every single business, and let's talk about retail, could have and should have, and it shouldn't be them firstly fixing their room before trying to change the world, shouldn't be paying taxes and treating their staff fairly and sourcing properly and not avoiding tax and things like that. Where it's a gimmick, when is the real? What is your opinion around that?
Yeah, no, I think Hannah's spot on. I think it's one of the biggest core tenets of retail is defining what is it that you stand for from a value point of view. And you end up very quickly in this virtuous cycle of if you treat your people well, they will give your customers a better experience. Your customers will therefore give you more revenue, which will therefore let you make more money, which will therefore let you treat your people well. And you just end up in this cycle, but it always comes back to how you treat your people and how you treat your customers. And we fully believe that a mission-driven company can anchor on that. And if you consider that your employees, your team members are the most important advocates for your brand, they're the most important, most loyal versions of your customers, then having a mission is the only way to move forward. Because the best brands in the world are built from the inside out. That is the only way you build a brand. You have to have it on the inside before you can have it on the outside. And so to do that, it has to be bigger than a message. It has to be bigger than a comms activity. It has to really be in everything that you do. And so, we're a value retailer. We're a portfolio of retail brands, but our biggest brand in our portfolio is a discount general merchandise retailer, very similar to something like a Kmart or a Walmart in the US. At the same time, we help our customers define value differently. We don't just define it by price. We have a 100% fully ethical supply chain. That's incredible. So you can get socks for $1, but you're buying it from a supply chain that has ethically sourced all of the componentry of those items. We are a fully carbon neutral retailer. So not only are we ethical, we're carbon neutral. And those are the kinds of things that really matter to both our customers and our team members, because by knowing that we treat not only our employees, but our supply chain ethically, and we're fully taking credit and responsibility for our carbon footprint, and you move into things like removing plastic packaging and making commitments to removing plastic from as many possible products as you can, you start to really move the narrative forward. And then as you get to that customer by customer conversation where they're just looking for something that has quite a bit of value in it, they no longer feel like they're compromising value for quality. They actually feel like they're winning at retail. And that is one of the emotions that, however you get there, is one of the most important emotions in retail. If you can help your customers feel like they won, either because they got a better deal, they got better service, they got a better experience, or they got something that was more than what they paid for, then you're in a really, really great place. And the way that customers are defining that today does end up coming back to the tenets of mission-driven companies, the tenets of companies that are taking sustainability and environmental practices to their core. And we don't believe that those things have to be at odds. We believe that you can have a low-priced item that is also good for the environment. And that's a very bold thing for a company to stand for. But if you're able to deliver on that, then why would you choose anything else?
Great, thank you. Jess, I want to bring you in. There's just one more question around purpose. Are you guys bootstrapping? Do you have an external investor besides you and your sister?
No, we don't have any external investors. We bootstrapped up until this point.
So how and I guess takes a lot of commitment, moral and spiritual, I would say, commitment between you and your sister, between you and your partner, to balance the short-term versus long-term goals, and in the same time keeping your purpose. How is that balance between? I mean, profitability, we know its margins in retail are pretty small. So how do you keep that commitment? You don't lose it when you look into your P&L, you see possibilities to make cuts here, make there. So how you keep the purpose?
Yeah, look, it sometimes can be a tricky one and has definitely tested us in the past. And I think that it's not about being perfect. And that's something that we've had to kind of find on our own. So we want to be an environmentally friendly company, but actually in shoes, it's virtually impossible right now with the technology out there to be a completely environmentally footwear company. So rather than, you know, just kind of sitting on our hands and like throwing it all up in the air and being like, oh, well, we can't do this, so we may as well just sit back. We're committed to our customers and we're committed to finding a solution. And I think that with everything in retail, how many different speeds are we working at, right? You know, like in fashion, especially, you know, you're selling a current collection, you're working on your next collection, you're looking to 12 months in advance. We're always working at so many speeds. And I think it's also just about cutting yourself some slack. So right now, if you went onto TWOOBS.com, you know, our footwear on there is 100% animal friendly. And we are completely transparent with our customers that we don't think that that's enough. We want to do more, but right now, this is what we can give you that is our very best. And then that means that, you know, at the end of the year, we're looking towards the end of 2020, we're going to be releasing footwear that's made, our main 2 components are made from recycled materials. And that's amazing. But we still don't think that that's our best. But we're going to release that out into the world because we think that that's also great. But then at the same time, we're working at a 3rd speed, which is at the end of 2021, where we're looking to release fully sustainable footwear with a fully closed loop solution. So I think it's just about that balance. Like with anything in business, yes, we have to pay our staff and we have to focus on our day-to-day costs. We're lucky that we have amazing partners that really believe in our vision. You know, David Jones and The Iconic are both on board with our vision and they've been so supportive through this whole thing. But I think that at the end of the day, you do have to cut yourself some slack. You can't be perfect, you know, especially when you're talking about, you know, Jonathan's talking about sustainability there and trying to bring the environment into a company that's, you know, selling huge volumes. We're all just out here trying to make it work. And as long as we are doing our best, and I believe being completely transparent with our customer, then that's the way forward. There's no point in getting bogged down by the little things.
Oh, that's lovely, Jess. What a great speech. Thank you. Very inspiring, very nice. No, it is indeed. It's really good to see startups and seeing business like yours doing that stuff. So well done. So Jonathan, I want to bring you back. Besides what Jess is doing really nicely, what's good in retail right now? What excites you? What's hot? What's nice in retail here or around the world?
So I happen to, and this is a big brand, so I'll throw Apple out there. But I like them for 2 reasons. One, I think their retail experience of understanding the products I bought previously and reminding me what they are, so I don't have to deal with the clutter of their inventory situation. I can just find the products that are most appropriate for the devices that I own. I think is a really elegant solution. I think that CX experience of filtering and personalizing a range to what it is that I actually need is just absolutely beautiful. I then think on the flip side, as a retailer, being able to show up in that ecosystem and using things like apps, et cetera, has completely changed how, as a retailer, I interact with my customers. Right now, I can create things like apps that are glowing rectangles that are always logged in, that always know who that end customer is and can interact with that customer in a very different way than 5 years ago where everything was anonymous. And I think those 2 evolutions, the first being a highly personalized one, the second being a fully logged in experience, have fully changed how I work with a brand like Apple. And I think there's a lot that as retailers we can learn from them because they're leading the way in many respects from what a good customer experience can look like. And despite them being such a big company, the tenets of their CX are actually very replicable at a very affordable scale. It doesn't cost a lot of money for a small scale retailer or some of the startups that we get to have the pleasure of working with to personalize their offering to the right customers or to create customer experiences that know who their customers are. I think both of those things are really inspiring to learn from.
I did it again. Hannah, I want to loop you in and segue from what Jonathan said, also answering one of the questions from the audience. What in retail, what is good in retail right now? What excites you? What collaborations you have seen in retail that's interesting? Hannah, do I still have you here?
Sorry, is this, yeah, was that to me?
Oh yeah, was that to you? I was saying that you have a really good like frozen face. Like you can do this as professional, can you? That's a talent on this time. During this time, that's a real talent. You being able to.
I'm clearly not focused enough because I didn't know that question was aimed at me, but.
No, Jonathan was explaining what's hot in retail right now and things he thinks is exciting you. And I just merged the same question with a question from the audience. What is good in retail right now that you're seeing that excites you, that you think it's amazing? What is collaboration or user experience? What is hot in retail?
I think this is such a big question. There's so much we could talk about. One example I did want to loop back to, and it stems from everything Jonathan was saying about Apple, and it links back to this kind of thing that keeps coming through about loving customers and great customer service. I went into an Apple store probably about 3 months ago now. I'd cracked the screen on my laptop, completely self-inflicted. Was expecting that it would cost me a bit to fix. I'd had an independent quote, about $1,800. Not great news. Walked into the store. The Apple consultant confirmed that it was going to be pretty expensive to fix. And then they kind of said, we're just actually going to run some diagnostics on your software while you're here, just to check if there's anything else that falls under warranty. He ran a quick test on my computer. He said, there's actually a problem with your software and it's under warranty. So we're going to fix that for you free of charge. And as we're doing that, we're going to fix your screen free of charge.
Oh, wow.
And I stood there completely speechless, kind of waiting for the punchline, going, sorry, just to walk me through that again. And I literally left the store, and 24 hours later, my laptop was fixed. It didn't cost me anything. And that level of customer service is absolutely world class. And I don't know how many friends and colleagues and people I have shared that story with, but I will be an Apple customer for the rest of my life from that. And you know, I love their products anyway, but from that one experience, that has absolutely cemented my relationship with that brand for the rest of my life. And I think it just talks to how important getting those things right are. And I think there's increasingly more brands that are starting to think and act like that and going above and beyond to make customers' lives easy.
Thank you. How about you, Jess? Anything hot? Anything that you think it's amazing, or what is a collaboration, or what's cool in retail right now? We have two Apples here. Can we go outside Apple?
Sure. I'm going to come at it from a more fashion perspective, I guess, and say that Glossier, the beauty company, are doing some really, really exciting things in retail and definitely giving us all a lot of inspiration and kind of showing, I think, that there is such a relevant and real place for physical retail, but it needs to be completely turned on its head. So this is a beauty company started by Emily Weiss, and their products are great, but they're just beauty products, makeup and things like that. And they have completely reimagined what a retail space could look like. They've got a store in LA and a store in New York, and they constantly have a line around the corner, and you know, they're complete with pink, stunning, beautiful fit outs. They both have these little Instagrammable caves in the back where girls just line up for hours to take an Instagram shot. I stayed across the road from the one in New York last year, and I just watched the line. I'm like, what are you guys doing? We're in New York. Like, stop wasting your time. But literally, they will spend hours waiting there because they want to go inside Glossier to get their lip gloss and to take their photo inside that Instagram cave. And so, yeah, I mean, for us, it's definitely really inspiring. I would love to see some physical retail for TWOOBS one day. That really, really excites me. But definitely reimagined, because there's so many cool things that you could do that doesn't involve just a plain white boring space that feels cold and tired.
There you go, Jonathan. Just need to put some pink doors, pink walls at the warehouse in New Zealand. Next time I want to see some pink walls. I'm going to answer another question from the audience, which is also, it's, in my opinion, one of the hardest questions. I have a lot of students asking me these questions, and I have placed the same question through different panels, and it's really hard to answer. But what are the most important skills you look for a marketer in your team? And I'd like to loop in and ask, what is the best decision someone can make right now when you are beginning of a career, being a generalist or being a specialist? Do you want to start, Jonathan?
Sure. Not sure how I feel about you associating me with boring white stores, but we'll move beyond that. I think I don't think you can pick. I'll be honest. I think you have to do both. I think the most important skill for any marketer right now, especially when you're thinking about retail, is agility. And you need to be able to both be a specialist in certain types of things, because we don't want to minimize the craft. There are crafts for Marcom, there are crafts for creativity, there are crafts for things like media planning and buying and all that good stuff that are incredibly important that people understand deeply in order for them to do well. But at the same time, that's not enough. They have to be able to zoom out. They have to be able to think and become T-shaped people and see how all the pieces fit together, because the businesses of today and tomorrow are looking for people who can connect the dots and who can effectively operate in autonomous or semi-autonomous teams. And you can't be in a semi-autonomous team if you don't have the context of what's happening around you. Because when you're in a semi-autonomous team, what's happening now in business, and especially for marketers, is things like decision rights are sitting with them at a very, very specific level. And so teams are able to make their own choices. You can't make those choices if you don't know the knock-on effects of those choices. Therefore, you have to understand how all those pieces are going to fit together. So the best advice I would give anybody who's starting to move into some of these spaces is learn as much as you can. You need to become a generalist, but you have to do it by becoming specialists in quite a variety of things. And that can feel very, very daunting, because the way that marketing was built as a function kind of created all of these specialties, where at some point you could decide, do you want to be a brand marketer? Do you want to be a media person? Or do you want to be a creative? And the reality is that we're looking for unicorns who can do all of those things, or at least navigate all of those things well enough that we can solve more problems with fewer people. And that's very much how the industry is moving. And I think for someone to thrive in that, that's a really exciting thing to be good at. Some people will find that to be really empowering. And that's really the type of skill that you need to work on, is finding ways to be exposed to more things so that you can both tap into your generalist and specialist skill all at the same time.
What's your take on that, Hannah? Generalist versus specialist?
Look, I agree with a lot of what Jonathan said. I think for me, the key, and Jonathan, you touched on it when you said trying to solve complex problems with fewer people. You alluded to something like that. And I think the key is what you need in business, whatever business you run, are brilliant problem solvers. The skill of creative problem solving is incredibly valuable. So being a great problem solver, being comfortable with change, and being flexible. So this agility that Jonathan was talking about, those two things alone are so important. And problem solving is a pretty generalist skill, but it's a skill that can be applied to absolutely every area of business. So if you're a great problem solver, and if you can say yes when other people are saying no, because you're a good problem solver, and you make things happen when other people can't, because they're not comfortable with solving problems, then you will be one of the most valuable people in any business.
All right, Jess, I want to ask you one different question. We have another 5 minutes before we wrap up, and I wanted to have a question to all of you. But with your business, do you see part of your future having a brick and mortar, have a physical store? Is that something that you and your sister talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. We usually do a pop-up space for the kind of 4 months towards the end of the year, starting in November. This year we had actually planned to do 2, one in Melbourne and one in Byron. COVID happened, who knows what will happen. But yeah, I definitely think that there's huge merit in having a physical store when we have these pop-up spaces. It's such an incredible way to be able to connect with our customers and with our audience, but not just using it for a retail space. So yes, they can come and shop the shoes, but also have it be an event space. Also have it be a community hub where people can come and connect with like-minded people and meet up, to, you know, rent it out to a local florist so they can sell flowers in the store. Recently, in our most recent one, we had a pop-up space where each weekend we had a different dessert pop-up that was just revolving. So really having it be a creative space. I guess the problem in Melbourne is that, you know, our retail areas are pretty slim pickings. Chapel Street is where we grew up shopping and loving, and unfortunately it is a bit of a sad strip right now, but we do have high hopes. But I definitely think, you know, there are great areas in Bondi and in Byron that we're really, really interested in. And so yeah, just finding the right space, I think for us to commit to more than a 4-month lease, it would just have to be a really, really special spot. And then just reimagining what a retail space looks like. Definitely not having it be shopping definitely, but there would be a lot of other things on the menu.
Yeah, I want to hear your opinion about future of brick and mortar, Hannah and Jonathan, and then I'll ask you the last question to the three of you, the best advice you ever received. So I'm just prompting you so you can have your mind thinking. We have about 2 minutes before we wrap this up. So how the retail, what's the natural progression of retail stores from now? Perhaps you, Jonathan, the physical store.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll give you 3 things because this is actually a very live topic for us at the moment, as you can imagine, because we have a massive footprint. We're within 30 minutes of everybody in the country. And so as you're rationalizing that with what's happening in the world, it's easy to get distracted by some of the trends. We have a fundamental premise, and we as a business have the belief that no matter what, our stores matter. And we've come to that conclusion because even in our wildest dreams, if e-commerce or digital becomes, let's call it 20 to 30% of our sales, which is a massive increase from where we are today. Even some of the biggest economies that have seen that digital acceleration are somewhere in the 20% range. So let's pretend it's 30. That still means 70% of the sales are coming through our stores. So they matter. That's premise number 1. Number 2 is that all of our growth is going to come from digital. And we believe that to also be true. And those 2 things can both be true at the same time, which then takes us to point 3, which is the 2 things can't have a delta between them that is incongruent. And what I mean by that is you don't want a website or an app that is so different than the store experience, because now you have a completely schizophrenic brand. And so our job is to actually A, invest in our stores so that they feel good and the experience is excellent. B, invest in the digital side of our footprint because we need that to capture the demand that's growing and coming from our consumers who are shifting to that channel. But then we have to connect the 2 because our customers are actually more valuable to us and they have a better experience when they can shift between both at their own desire. So we're not going to force them into one channel or the other. People are fluid. They don't shop by channel. They shop by brand. They want to shop with us, and some days that might be through a phone, some days that might be in a store, some days that might be on a computer, and it just completely is up to them. So I think the footprint is here to stay. I think the use of that footprint is going to change, and some of the best retailers in the world are pivoting their footprint to be an act of fulfillment versus just an act of showrooming. Which is typically where retailers have seen it. And so you're connecting that online and offline world in a way where the customer is in charge. And some of the best experiences would show that through things like 1 hour click and collect, or being able to see the inventory in the store before you go. So you know that it's in stock, you know that it's there. And sometimes you can even set it aside or have somebody allocate it for you. I think that's absolutely the future of where this is going.
And very quickly, Hannah, in a few seconds, are we going to see a Lvly store, pop-up store anytime soon?
Absolutely, we'd love to. We think physical has a really important role to play. We think it has a role in our future. And so we'll be trialing it. But our view is we want to make that trial fairly short term initially. So a collaboration is the perfect opportunity. We want to do it with somebody who does understand physical retail, because that's not our background. That's not where we're at. And it would make sense to do it around key gifting periods like Valentine's and Mother's Day. So yeah, absolutely. It's something that's in our roadmap.
Awesome. So the best advice I ever received was make yourself useful, right? Go to the most talented person you know, the most successful person you know, and ask, what is the most horrible thing you do that you absolutely hate? What is that 10 or 20% that you hate the most? What is that 10% that you wake up hating and you go to sleep hating? How can I help you to solve that? And that's been a philosophy I applied in my agency life, and that's been helping me not just in business, but in personal life. So to wrap up tonight, I'd like to know from you, Hannah, from you, Jess, and from you, Jonathan, perhaps we start with you, Jess. What is the best advice you ever received that you'd like to repeat to the audience?
If not you, who? And if not now, when? I think it's so common as humans to second guess ourselves, to hold ourselves back. We're so often our own harshest critic. You know, we're the first person to cheer on our friend, but when it comes to us, we're always second guessing. We're always holding ourselves back. And I think the best advice I've been given and that I could share with anyone is that if not you, who? And if not now, when? You just got to go out and go for it and put yourself out there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jess. How about you, Hannah?
The best advice I ever received was do what scares you. And that has definitely led to applying that as a kind of mantra and outlook to key decisions in life has definitely led both from a personal perspective and from a business perspective to some of the best things I've ever done, because it means you lean into the difficult situations, you lean in and say yes when everything inside you is kind of scared and saying no, but actually that's when the really exciting, brilliant stuff happens. And by doing that, you build more courage and more resilience, and it becomes this kind of, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy. So yeah, do what scares you has always worked for me.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think the best advice I've ever been given was always around being an optimist and helping people find a yes. Hell, there's always going to be people in the business who are there to be conservative, who are there to say no. It's just the way that corporates and big companies end up evolving. You know, they do end up kind of finding a median that is somewhere in that neutral territory. And so if you can be the person that always has two new ideas, always be ready with two ideas, always be ready to help people find a way to make it true. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if you start with yes as your first answer, and then if you end up with it being a no, that's fine, as opposed to what most people's bias is, which is starting with a no, but then begrudgingly finding a yes. You will find yourself delivering a different type of value to the organization, and organizations that are trying to grow, organizations that are looking for change will gravitate towards optimists, because those are the people that are going to lead them forward. Those are the people that are going to find a way to make the unimaginable happen. And if you can position yourself as one of those people, then you will be in really good company.
Well, that's such a great conversation, Hannah, Jess, and Jonathan. You three, what an amazing panel. How much? I could stay here another 1 hour. I don't know if you would be willing to be here for another 1 hour with me, but we need to wrap this up. We need to wrap this party up. We're going to make this video available to the attendees of today. We're going to make sure we place a link to Jess, your website, Hannah, yours, Jonathan, yours as well. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jess. You've been lovely. You've been amazing. Got it? Been lovely. You've been amazing. Thank you very much. Guys, for the other attendees, I'm going to invite you to join us the next series where we're going to be talking about the future of work. Very topical subject. We're going to be doing this next session on Thursday, the 25th of June, between 5:30 and 6:30 afternoon. Advertising Week Briefings, 5 things in the future of work. So thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And I'll bring
See you
you
guys.
back to you, Kate.
Wow, thank you so much, guys. What a wonderful discussion. I'd just like to say thank you again to Lucio and our guests, Hannah, Jonathan, and Jess. And also, before we go, we'd love it if you could have the time to fill out the feedback, which is just in the link in the chat. But yeah, have a great evening, and we hope to see you all online soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.